Welcome to the Craig Brock Real Estate Show, helping you navigate through all the challenges and pitfalls related to real estate. Craig is San Diego's real estate investment strategist. And now, here's Craig Brock.
Good morning, Southern California. I like to make it easy when it comes to obtaining a home mortgage. But let's face it, you can't always make it easy for everyone, unfortunately. Even though I'm connected with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the whole idea is to cut out the red tape, cut out the large bank, cut out the mortgage broker. Let's face it, in my town, many of the mortgage brokers are part-time working at something else. They might be working at a surf shop. They might be driving a limo at night, or who knows what they're doing. The scenario is that if you go to a mortgage broker, that mortgage broker has to place your loan with a bank. It's a lot of hope and pray. When you go to a bank, you typically have someone that's right out of high school or college, and they're opening checking accounts, and they're really not the one that's most familiar with all the regulations and red tape, so it's really not the way to go either. But chances are they'll be able to close your loan. Then when it comes to an actual direct lender to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, I try to get the word out. Unfortunately, we don't reach everyone that we want to reach. So some people just they just think they can't get a mortgage, or they don't know where to turn. There is another way, and it's called seller financing. We've been talking about seller financing this week. It is the missing link. It's a link that hasn't been around much over recent years because the market's been so robust. But we're starting to see seller financing come back in place. It is back, and we have an expert with us this morning. His name is Terry Lewis. You can check out his website at sellerfinanceconsultants.com. sellerfinanceconsultants.com. If you've been turned down for a mortgage, or you fear all the red tape by going down to the bank or working with a broker, or maybe working even with a direct lender, you just think that there's just too much to know, and that you're just simply worried about being qualified, or maybe you've already been turned down and you thought the only option was to keep on renting. That's just not the case. You can get into a home of your own. And Terry Lewis is going to tell us how we can do that. We're also going to get into what you can do if you have a home that you need to sell that's underwater. You've tried to take advantage of President Obama's program, the Home Affordable Refinance Program. It's helped 2 million homeowners. It's worked out pretty well. For those that don't have a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac loan, though, it certainly hasn't worked out for them. There's the HAMP program, the Government Modification Program. The HAMP program, you have to fit into this tiny box in order to be qualified for this government mod program. A lot of people can't fit into the tiny box. The scenario there is that if you don't fit into the box, then you short sale, or worse, you perhaps lose your property to foreclosure sale. But there is another solution if you can't fit into that box either. Terry Lewis is going to explain. Good morning, Mr. Lewis. Thanks for joining us here on Financial News and Talk.
Good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me again. This is I'm really excited to be speaking today about investors in seller financing.
Well, that certainly is the terrific opportunity here this morning. There are opportunities to invest in these particular notes. I've invested in trust deeds for over 30 years. It worked out pretty well. I actually bought my first note before I was 18 years of age. My parents had to actually be the one to purchase it because I wasn't even a legal adult. The scenario is that the returns are terrific. It didn't work out so well for me in 2009, though, when I didn't have all the payments coming in that I was supposed to have, and I ended up having to foreclose properties. Actually, a few people just left their keys in the mailbox. I had some second notes, some second trust deeds, and the environment was so tough then that people just walked away. But I ended up with these properties, not to my desire, because that's never the desire as an investor. I know some investors will loan to own. That's not my ideology. It's never been. I was able to rent the properties out, fortunately. And then when the market improved, and I mean, look what's happened over recent years. It's just been crazy. It's been robust. I was able to sell the properties. So I didn't get hurt. It actually worked out better than I thought. And, you know, now we look at what's happening with stocks. We've got the S&P 500 that's almost at a new all-time high, but not everything's working. There's a bunch of stocks that are in the Nasdaq right now that are toxic stocks that are sickening the Nasdaq, and you don't have to go very far to find some sick stocks. We spoke about LinkedIn down over 50%. We've got Whole Foods that's off on the year, and we also have Tesla that's just been breaking down. And then, of course, there's the IPOs, the initial public offerings. 2014 has not been a good year for initial public offerings. Terry, can you tell us what the opportunity is if we want to invest in real estate?
Yeah, so I really think that what the space that we're in now, there's the banks aren't willing to lend. The box that you have to be in to get a loan is just so difficult that it's leaving so many people on the sidelines. You can have enough money in your bank account to pledge those assets to the loan that you want, and you still can't get a loan because they don't meet guidelines for income and credit. You have to have income, credit, and collateral to fit into that box. So it's just leaving tons of people on the sidelines, and so the opportunity here is for investors who, or just your average person that has a 401k or a Roth or an IRA, to switch it over to potentially a self-directed IRA. And instead of having it in a stock fund that, it's at an all-time high, but, the last peak was maybe 10 years ago. I'm not sure exactly. But how much have you really gained in that 10 years? You've just gone back to where you were. And so when you invest in a mortgage, you can actually do it in your own choice, in your own community. You can look at the buyer and shake their hand. And these buyers have 20, 30% to put down. And they just want to own a home, and they're willing to fix it up. They're willing to have home ownership. And an investor can come in and actually own the first trust deed of that property as the bank, by buying it from the seller financed, when the seller finances it in the sale. And they can buy it at a discount that will give them a yield. It's getting a little complicated, but they can get a yield that they want, 8, 10, 12%, and have a cash flow on that property that they can use to live on for their retirement. And it's just such a great way of knowing, what your income potential is in the future by owning a note.
Okay, now I want to quantify this for people that are thinking about purchasing a home with this private equity financing, with this seller financing. The scenario is that there's an algorithm, and if this algorithm is used appropriately, it is what would throw off the high yield to the investor, because as a potential homeowner coming in and buying a home anywhere in Southern California for that matter, it could be in Newport Beach, it could be in Upland or Rialto, it could be in Carlsbad, it doesn't matter where it's at. As a home buyer, you're not going to be paying this high interest rate because there's a matrix, there's a software program that I don't want to get into because there's a lot to know about it, but the investors out there, I know you'll share all the information with them as far as how the discounting of the note works to get them the yield that they achieve. But let's face it, FHA financing, even though the rates this morning are fantastic, 3.75% for a 30-year loan without having to pay points. I mean, what's not to like about that? Well, the thing that's not to like about it is the costly mortgage insurance that FHA has to charge you now, because they've been losing so much money over recent years. And then you have to pay the FHA that costly upfront mortgage insurance premium. And then let's face it, if you don't have a W-2, you don't have a pay stub, if you're self-employed, even if you have a paving company where you make $100,000 a month, it doesn't matter. If your bottom line isn't enough to qualify, that line 37 on your tax returns, if that doesn't show enough income after the add back for depreciation, chances are you're not going to be able to get the house. Whereas with seller financing, it's all different. If you have a self-directed IRA, you want to invest that money, this is the solution for you. If you have a brokerage account of any kind, you can buy notes within that brokerage account, just like you can stocks or bonds. And Terry Lewis will show you how the discounting mechanism mechanism will get you into that yield category that you desire. Now, I want to hear about what this can do for me if I'm looking to get into a home, if I've been turned down at Wells Fargo or Chase because I had a previous short sale, maybe I had some other credit issues. The bank says no. They said I can't get a loan for the next year, maybe a couple of years. What is available? What options are available in that scenario? Am I stuck at looking at a few properties that are not desirable, or can I potentially go out and look at any property available on the market?
Well, what you could do, and instead of picturing walking in the bank's front door and asking for a home loan from the bank, you could actually, through your friends and family or outside resources, maybe you know somebody that has a pension fund that's a doctor or some they've been saving their whole lives, an older member of the family, although they can't really lend to the you can't lend a pension plan to a family member, but you could actually go to them and say, look, I'm thinking of buying a house and I have 20% to put down, and here's the house, by the way. Will you lend me money on the first trust deed on this house through your pension? And seller finance consultants can be the underwriter for that loan because of the Dodd-Frank rules that just went into effect in January 10th. And we can actually underwrite that loan and make it a compliant loan for purposes of the retirement account and also the federal law that's in place. And it becomes an actual asset to that pension with an income and a cash flow that's internally growing in there. And that's just one example of somebody that through personal relationships could buy a house without using the bank.
So in theory, it could happen. But
Oh,
let's face it,
absolutely.
a lot of us don't have rich uncles, so we're looking at you for a solution. You do have investors that are willing and ready to move already. If you're looking to buy a home, where they'll actually buy your note through this scenario of you doing the underwriting. And I know you've got a lot of that information up on the web at Seller Finance Consultants. We're listening to Terry Lewis this morning, who's showing us a different way. If you've been turned down by the bank or the mortgage broker and you can't get a loan through a traditional source, this could be the non-traditional source that would be appropriate for you. And if you have a home to sell, this could also be the source. As I was mentioning on yesterday's broadcast, if you have a home that's underwater, don't short sale, because a short sale will hurt your credit. It will tarnish your credit for years to come, where you can actually carry back the note on the property and help a family get into this new property. And then later on, the note is refinanced when the buyer is able to through traditional means, or maybe in some cases through non-traditional means with your private investors. So there's multiple opportunities here. There's actually 3 different opportunities. There's an opportunity to buy a home if you're looking to get into a home. There's an opportunity to sell a home if you have a home that's underwater and you can't take advantage of President Obama's programs. If you weren't able to harp or hamp, you might look at this strategy. And if you're an investor and you're sick of this market, you're saying, well, the S&P is 500 is just about at an all-time high, but I'm not making money in the market. Making money in the real estate market could be a lot better scenario. And tomorrow we're going to talk about additional options that you can make money in the real estate market with without having to take unnecessary risk. We're not talking about buying properties at the foreclosure auction and taking a lot of risk. We're talking about investing in notes. You have something tangible. That's what I've done for over 30 years, is invested in trust deeds. Terry, is there an opportunity to break up some of these opportunities? Because let's face it, these notes could be 300, 400, 500,000. Can you group a few different investors together so they're able to get pieces of an individual note?
Of course, they can be broken up. We don't do that. It it's like several people could get together and say and pool their money, and then when the note is actually serviced through a private servicing company, they'll actually cut checks based on the percentage of income to the individual investors for that note. So it's wide open what can be done, and I have to point out that the best book that I ever read for thinking this way was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it takes about 2 days to read. It's very light reading, but it's just so powerful how the power of money can work. And when you talk about discounting a note, and it's basically the net present value of a cash flow that can be figured out. It's simple math, but even our education system isn't teaching that stuff today. And it's just so powerful how money can work for somebody. And I just feel like that particular book, and then The Banker's Code is another one by George Antone that I read. It just sets all this stuff in place, and it's a way of thinking for retirement, for how to own a home, and really be your own person, and invest and take charge of your life, and not have to rely on banks and the banking system to own a home and to gather wealth. And it's a whole concept, and today's conversation I'm really passionate about, because I own notes as well. I don't own property anymore. I sold it all because I just got tired of managing the people, the renters and things like that. And I've converted everything into notes, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And there's another way to do that. If you own real estate and you're thinking, I might have to perform a 1031 exchange, and performing that 1031 exchange and buying notes is a little bit difficult. We actually have a deferred sales trust that could work for you. If you're tired of tenants, toilets, and trash, the deferred sales trust could allow you to transfer your property, your highly appreciated income property, to the trust. You perfect the sale inside the trust. The assets come into the trust after the sale. You can use those assets to go out and purchase these notes that we've been talking about. You can also purchase stocks. You can purchase bonds and other investment vehicles. It's a deferred sales trust. There's a lot to know about that. We have an expert. His name is Kevin Bruner, and he has a white papers that can get you the information that you need on that, Southern California. It's all things real estate here. I'm Craig Brock. This is a Craig Brock Real Estate Program on Financial News and Talk on this Bloomberg network. We're speaking to Terry Lewis that can help you get into a home or maybe sell a home. The website is sellerfinanceconsultants.com. That's sellerfinanceconsultants.com. If you'd like to contact him direct with his phone, his number is 619-786-5550. Terry, so there's an opportunity to invest in these notes. There's also this it's basically mitigating risk if you buy multiple notes. And I don't want to spend too much time on the strategy with the note purchase, because I feel that more people have problems that weren't able to take advantage of President Obama's program, so they need to get out of their property. What does it look like if you owe more on your property than it's worth? How in the world would you sell it?
Well, a lot of there's certain instances where people have gotten modifications over the past few years on their homes. It could be the HARP and the HOPE and all the acronyms there. At a certain point in time, banks weren't reducing principal. They were actually, if people were in default, they were extending the loan out 40 years and lowering the interest rate through a modification, and sometimes they were as low as 2%. Well, those payments, even though the mortgages are way, the homes are way underwater, sometimes by 100,000, or it just depends what the percentage is. But those payments are very low, and if it makes sense to rent that property out at that payment, then it might make sense to have, even though it's so far underwater, it makes sense for an investor to potentially come in and take over that loan through a wraparound mortgage or seller financing, and then relieve that homeowner of their obligation, by buying the home. And it doesn't relieve the obligation because the loan still stays in the homeowner's name, which would prevent them from getting a new loan, but it gets them out of the house, and it prevents them.
It might prevent them, but if it's done appropriately, we might be able to structure it to where you can get that debt out of your credit and go purchase another property.
That's correct.
You do have to follow some guidelines there, but certainly we can help you with that. But the scenario is that this is an opportunity to get out of that debt, to get out of that hassle, even if the property is underwater. Now, Terry, there's another acronym out there, and some of us older guys have heard it for many years. It's called an AITD, an all-inclusive trust deed, something that hasn't been talked about much over recent years. Are you talking about that at all with the RAP?
Well, yeah, I kind of think that an AITD and a RAP are one and the same, and it depends on what part of the country you're in, on what some of these things are and their meanings. They end up meaning the same thing, but that, in my mind, they're both similar.
Okay, fantastic. Now, what's the scenario like if I want to get into a property? What do I have to fear if we're wrapping somebody's mortgage?
Well, the bank can once they receive a payment from somebody different, or if the insurance has a different loss payee, then they'll be aware that something happened, and they can potentially go do the research and find out that maybe title has changed, and they can call the loan and ask for the loan to be paid off. The thing about it is, if the house is upside down, they're not going to want it, and they'll probably just let it go. But there is that risk, and but it at the same time, it sometimes that's what people need to do to solve their personal situation.
Well, that's why you want somebody that knows what they're doing, that's experienced about this topic, and that has the steps. And I know that that this is a comprehensive plan. This is much more than just putting together a contract. As a matter of fact, you work with a lot of realtors, you work with private sellers, you work with realtors, you work with anyone, because you have the strategy, and you have the strategy that's available for anyone that wants to take advantage of it. It's seller financing. And if you're looking to get into a home, this is a great way to go. You still write the interest off, because even if someone is selling the property with a carryback or a wraparound, you're going to give that 1099 from the servicer to the new buyer and allow them to deduct the mortgage interest. Well, Terry, we just have about 30 seconds here. We want to get your contact information out and any last words that you have.
Great. Yeah, sellerfinanceconsultants.com is our website. And really, we're about solving problems for people. A lot of realtors don't have all the strategies. We can help them and help the homeowner make decisions on what would best meet their needs. We have vendors, attorneys that can help make decisions on these technical issues. And we just love a phone call if you have a question. The number is 619-786-5550. And I really appreciate you having me on today, Craig.
You bet. Well, thanks for your contribution this morning, Terry, on the Bloomberg Financial News Network. I'm Craig Brock. My website is craigbrockmortgage.com for that comprehensive mortgage report, or you can call me anytime. I'm in the office, work some half days, only 12 hours a day. Call anytime, 855-900-EASY.